Here we are on, I believe, the third election cycle in Macher. Party conferences, nothing happened during them. Deploying the shadow cabinet just went. And everybody, well, black, yellow, and green played into here, Niedersachsen. And got an interesting situation here where green had to play first. So they actually used rhetoric to improve the 35-hour, their disagreement with the 35-hour work week, making that a double value issue. Yellow followed up by increasing their popularity, making it neutral. They're going to kind of work together as a coalition here. Neither feels the others in the lead. Green obviously is being beaten right now by yellow, but yellow's behind black. So there's kind of this, let's work together on this one, because they have sufficient agreement. In fact, they would have forced it no matter what with those two Ks there, if one of them wanted it, and I believe green definitely does want it. And now black also played here, and they grabbed the media cube of yellows and paid yellow $800 for that. So they've gotten their little advantage there. Red didn't play a card there. Coalition has been formed, and now there's an option to buy media in each area. And green is going to have the first choice to do so. We'll come through that and see what happens. So media was purchased everywhere, and we see black has maintained their lead here in Niedersachsen, and they moved the attitude towards atomics there from a yes to a no. No one else really changed anything of importance. This went from, whatever this is, Storsenkung, I don't know, over to the free trade side. It didn't really affect anything, but they wanted to play it out anyway. Okay, so now it's time to buy the campaign meetings. This is what we did in the wrong order last time. We're going to go again, starting down the line, and do that. Okay, so some of the polls, and again, this is really a tough game to capture on the film without going action by action, and I can't think that way with something like this. So some of the polling's been decided, and pretty much in most areas it's been taken advantage of. Some they kind of felt kind of funny, like here, I think it was green who got the choice to move black up another one and red down another one. Red's in the competition, black's not, so it doesn't seem that harmful, but, you know, making him more solidly popular, even though his views aren't, could be a huge bonus for him there. We're seeing some fighting here where yellow bought one for a couple $100 a pop and converted the balance in his favor against his only opposition there, black. Black and yellow seem to be fighting a lot more than some of the other combinations do. They've been fighting all game and kind of forming this strong dislike. All right, well now it's time to go to the assessments and actually score the different regions except for the electoral one, and we'll do that. So the groundwork was laid in some of these. For the most part, people have been clearing up, collecting the good points on here. Green is up to 40, yellow is in the 20s. They have a coalition, so they feel pretty safe with that power. Red didn't want to spend theirs. They think they're going to get better if they don't have that thumb down in place. And black, well, I believe they turned theirs in also for the value there, hoping that they can put more counters in next turn. And we have the same kind of situation in some of the other states. Over here, nothing's changing because they have more time to get them out of the way. In a sense, maybe black should have held on and seen what this next card is, because it would help them more. They really do need a bigger boost than perhaps they can get against the values they have. Now we go on to scoring the main one there, Saarland. So the net results of the Saarland election. Big win for the reds and greens at 600 each. That gave them $6,000. Media positioning for both colors in there. This wasn't a coalition, but they tied, and they got to move things. And they moved the 35-hour hour work week refusal, as well as the atomic energy refusal. Now there's 3 anti-atomics in Bonn, and that means the 3 players who are positioned against atomic energy, everyone except yellow, is scoring huge amounts of base points on that. They're getting 3 bases each election as long as that's up there. Now, granted, that's worked its way up. It's 3 this time. That could get defeated at some point, but right now it's this huge benefit that's accumulating and accruing there. The only other things left to do right now are to calculate out, to figure out who's going to take any donations. And in this case, I guess the weakest player is the FDP, the yellow player, and they can take the $500 donation for free. We'll see if anybody else takes one. Everybody seems to have a lot of cash now, though, with the victories. Red finally got their big $6,000 cash. Got several thousand here in black, and yellow's got a decent amount. So I don't think anybody's going to beg for donations and take a risk on them. We'll see. And then I've got to clean up the board, and we'll see what the next election cycle is like. Well, black took a risk and took $1,000 from the church, and they ended up not getting harmed by it. Everyone else held back, so everybody's holding on to their party bases at this point. This is the last election cycle to come up, the Rhine Falls, and it's kind of a small area. We had the biggest area as the very first one. I didn't realize how mighty that was comparatively. What is this? Yeah, it couldn't have been that big. I'm not sure. Did I get the points right on it? Baden-Württemberg. 17 votes. The mandate was only 6. That's a big mandate, though, still. For a starting mandate, we see 3. We got a 6 coming up here in Saxony. So that's another big one. Another important state. Other than that, I got some of these cards to turn up, see what's going to be happening for these. That doesn't cause a problem. That does. And ends up getting replaced by this horrible marked card. I may have to take a black marker to or something to try to fix. This one, and then I gotta draw a new set for that and another card. So playing here, getting to the party conferences in this is the 4th of the electoral cycles. Kind of ran into the feeling that yes, this is again sharing the nature of a lot of the Euros that I don't like, which is that I have all these different intricate things that are in balance, and I can choose to push one or another. Things could change very much. It's very hard to make that calculation, but I feel like it's very possible to make that calculation. That my brain's just not capable of it, right? That I'm not able to hold enough things in balance in it to come to that calculation. This is a very different feeling from I cannot, and I don't believe anybody can make the calculation, and therefore I can do what feels right. And that's one of the positions that I think is very different between, I don't have a gut feeling here. I have elections that I'm trying to balance, and in this particular case, do I want to reposition myself by using one of these platform markers? Do I want to pay that money? Is it going to be a worthwhile action? Hard to tell. I can't come up with my whole plan for the turn at this moment, much less doing it for every power in a comfortable and easy manner. And that I find frustrating and somewhat unpleasant in a game. And this is, I think, the level of thinking that people who love the Euros, especially the heavier Euros, really aim for. And it's tough for me because I don't find that kind of difficulty with, say, an 18xx game where I can't calculate what the other people are going to do, what their influence is going to be on me. But there I don't feel like the effect is primarily my choice, but it's actually their choices. Here I feel like my own stupid choices are what are going to nail me, or my good choices are what if I were capable of them, are what are going to win me the game. Much like an Age of Renaissance type game, even though that has a lot of luck in it, I feel like I'm not able to make the clever choice. In an 18xx game, I feel like I can't know what the answer is, but I can assess what all the values are at a particular moment. I know what the best choice would be at a particular moment, given that I could control how things were going to come out. Here, I can't calculate it enough. There's too many levers in play at once for me to do that. Now, I could sit down and do it with pencil and paper, and I don't like that. I feel like a little bit more computational ability, and I could calculate these games and make the best decisions on them. And that's where I get frustrated, because I think if my brain was just a little bit faster than it is, I could completely grasp these. Anyway, that's just my thought on this. I'm going to move on and continue through this with the shadow cabinet, etc. But I've learned with these games, the best answer is to just step back from and say they don't matter much and try to play them kind of loosely, which is actually how the people in Age of Renaissance who do well kind of play it. They don't try to calculate everything. But it didn't help me ever. All right, onward. So the shadow cabinet have been deployed. Finally, Red jumped in on this one. I'm not sure how much good they did, but they raised the popularity to try to make all these cubes more valuable. They've already invested in the cubes. They might as well get an equal situation kind of here, where Red's going to have a hard time making their cubes worth really anything at all with that double thumbs against. Green went in, and so here's the other thing though. The media ended up placed in Black's favor, and Black was able to place something they wanted there, the 218 no, anti-abortion stance in there, in order to match their agenda a little better. Doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to, no coalitions formed. Okay. So it's getting, they're trying to position things so that they have a chance to score some heavy points. They're probably not going to beat this coalition. But it's hard to tell. That coalition doesn't have a lot of extra cubes, and their positioning for adding more points has gotten weaker. Likewise, over here with Green, they managed to put the unions in their position and improving their own situation using bonus. They also have the rhetoric bonus against NATO. Over here, Black was able to get a pro-NATO position into play. And over here, Yellow got the media cubes, but didn't want to change from NATO to something else. They didn't see anything they necessarily want to move at this point. They've got the lead right now, and Red is the next player up who has a no NATO. So, trying to change that at this point doesn't seem wise. So now we go on to buying the actual cubes and going forward with the opinion polls. So after buying cubes and setting them up, nobody's actually committing any of them at this point. The multipliers just didn't work out quite well enough, even though over here you have 2, 3, 4. It's halved because of the thumb down for both red and green. So it just ends up at 2, and it seems like such a pain to spend that many tokens. Red could use the additional tokens, but they're going to score a bunch here. People who are a little more iffy, yellow's not going to have a lot of tokens coming back to them because they're only going to get 1 back from this. So the fact that they didn't score anything is kind of painful, but they want to see how things turn out on these before they actually score them. They're back-ending all their cubes, and what can they do? They could try to recycle these that aren't terribly useful. That might be their best move, but maybe they can get an advantage here by taking the media control or something. We can't be sure, and it seems money's not terribly short, but it's still not free. There's only 2,800 there. That's not enough to see them through all these, so leaving those cubes there might not be too terrible. All right, let's go and handle Niedersachsen. Okay, so here in Niedersachsen, the green-yellow coalition. Well, green actually had the plurality, so they would have won had they been on their own. With the FDP, they're certainly going to still beat because there was no other coalition to face them. So they're going to share the coalition value, and they each get their media token because of that. Great. Put that there. But calculate out the votes and put them out here, and what we notice is that green and yellow, yellow is the FDP, is actually an absolute majority, which means they'll get to promote 3 of these into position. And green, as the larger, gets to promote 2 first. Now what it likes, well, green doesn't like NATO. They don't want to promote that, but they're going to promote another anti-atomic. That's 4 anti-atomic, making that an absolute necessity, but everyone except yellow has that. And now they get another one. They don't want to promote either of the others, so we go to yellow, and yellow says, I like NATO, and I'm going to put a NATO ja into play. That third one didn't go over. These come here, and I think that's the end of the turn. Well, we got the funding and the donations, so I got to collect the money for that. But funding is going to, of course, be based on the votes themselves, and then party base is what each party can add a base for each agreement between the party and the federal opinion. So we'll take care of that as well. Be back in a bit. Okay, so we're at the end of the line here for this election. It actually just goes away. There's no one to replace it. So now we'll be going on to the Hamburg election for the next one. And where do we sit? And now I'm beginning to see what the votes are lining up as in a way that I haven't really been able to. For one thing, I had the numbers wrong on the last election. The numbers were fine. I just put them here instead of keeping the running total that I've been keeping. But when I start to look at this, okay, so green has the most votes. Are they winning? I believe the answer is yes. They have 30 points worth of media plus a lot of agreement. They have the big atomic, which everyone but yellow has. And the rest are kind of small, but they're worth 10 points each. So they have, what, 40, 50 plus 30 is an 80-point multiplier plus another 11. That gives them a 91-point multiplier with this big 1,300 votes. But votes aren't all that matters. It's the multiplier, too. So let's look at the CDU here, who's the next at over 1,000 votes at 1,184. Okay, what's their multiplier look like? Well, they only have 1 media cube. So right off, they're in a somewhat weaker position. They have a little bit more party base, but that doesn't really help much. What does is there agreements here. The 4 atomic, the abortion issue, that doesn't penalize them, but the NATO. So 4, 5, 6, so they've got a 70 multiplier, make it 82. It's very close, but I believe green has the edge on it. Let's look at some of the others, but they don't look very promising. For one thing, if we look at the FDP, they don't have a lot of party base. They're down the atomic. They're in horrible shape. They took the free $500 donation because they were in the worst shape here, and I don't think they have a chance, basically. They don't have the big cash payoffs. But red has all these big value leaders to play. So they needed cash. Well, they went for the big roll and took the 3-die roll for $3,000 to help fund their last plays for their campaign. Well, they took 4 party base hits. One of their advantages was they were at 15 party base. Okay, that's not huge. But when you add 10, 50, 60 and 15, 75, it puts them in the same ballpark. Now they're down to 71, and it's not really quite as close when you add all their points together. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 75. Yeah, 71. And when you multiply it to the amount of votes they have at only 8,800, they're well behind. They're in third place very clearly. Yellow is so far behind without the atomic issue. If they could swing that atomic vote or somehow change their stance, but nobody's going to get rid of that, and they can't change their stance because they would be the last person changing, and that just doesn't work in a 4-player game. If this was just a 3-player game, everyone could switch to that. Kind of a weird feel there, huh? I don't know why. Okay, so that's where we're kind of sitting with votes. That means players are going to directly be attempting to compete with green a little more than they are with anyone else. They're going to hunt them. But you do have to remember the CDU, black, is not far behind. So people have to be kind of careful there. What we see, green doesn't have a lot of presence on the boards. Black has a decent presence. Red has a decent presence. Yellow, of course, has a lot of pieces, but they're not going to really be in this game. All right, I'm going to load this one up. Like I said, I have a feel for who's winning right now, but not an absolute, understanding of how I'm going to move things, how I'm going to win things on the different. Again, there's a lot of little levers in this game. It's not something you pick up right away. All right, up it goes.